Pikes Peak is America's mountain. Its majestic view above Colorado's plains was the inspiration for the poem America the Beautiful. Fountain Creek flows from Pikes Peak, making it America's creek. This historic but now endangered watershed is the focus of this production. The theme music for this documentary was inspired by the following words.
I'm the stream they call the Fountain Creek, and like the sun and moon, I am part of every living thing, both old and new. Warm winds blow a million blades of grass where naturally I flow. Mother Earth dresses up to sing in Colorado. Angry skies pound the earth like warring drums. My waters will roar and will rage. Many poisons are poured into my heart, and nowhere can antelope play. I look to the sky and I wonder, will anybody take care of me? I am ancient, and life is so sacred. How long will it take till we see?
Hello, my name is David Struthers, president of the Fountain Creek Foundation. The Fountain Creek Foundation is a nonprofit, volunteer organization that exists to promote environmental and generational stewardship of the Fountain Creek. The history of Fountain Creek must be understood by everyone if we are to make good decisions about the watershed. I am your host for this documentary about Colorado's historic but now endangered Fountain Creek and the children who lived and played along her banks and in her waters. Have you heard these phrases about the weather along Fountain Creek? Horsetails in the west, weather is best. Horsetails in the east, weather is bleak. Ring around the sun, it's time for fun. Ring around the moon, trouble coming soon. When the evening sky is red, the devil is dead. Many sayings about the weather are accurate and can be explained through modern science. However, some sayings are part of local lore, yet, for unknown reasons, are often correct. Let's come back to these weather sayings after we explore the relationship children had with nature at Fountain Creek from 1710 to 1730. Ancestors of the Ute appear to have occupied this area for at least 1,000 years. The Southern Ute were the first to be called by the Ute name. The Southern Ute were hunter-gatherers, hunting rabbits, deer, and mountain sheep, and gathering seeds, roots, tubers, berries, and nuts. They also practiced some floodplain gardening. Come with me back to the early 1700s for a virtual visit with the Native American children living at the Fountain Creek.
The creek is our home and our friend. Around the creek, my tribe breaks up into smaller family units for much of the year. This is necessary because food gets scarce, and it takes a large area of land to feed even a small number of my people. From spring until fall, the men hunt for deer, elk, antelope, and other animals. My children and I gather seeds, wild berries, and fruits. Sometimes our elders show us how to plant corn, beans, and squash in the mountain meadows, and then harvest them in the autumn. In the warm months, we live in the mountains by the creek. And then when the snows come, we move down to the plains near the creek. Nature is our home, where we see the sky changing colors, the clouds creating shadows, the many shades of green grass and trees, the clear water, the birds, antelope, rabbits, and deer. All of us have to be aware of the changing weather. Sometimes the heavy rains and wind flood our camp and tear down our teepees, and we have to run away from the raging water. The winter brings a time where we gather with different bands. We have many special events together. For 4 days in early spring, we hold the bear dance, the most ancient of all the Ute dances. Then we all spread out in the spring along the creek until winter comes again. My tribe knows the Spanish explorers, and we trade dried meat and hides for knives and other metal items. But the most important trade is for Spanish horses. Sometimes children are traded for horses. Horses make it possible for our men to hunt buffalo on the plains. Horses also help us move during the seasons and to protect ourselves. Sometimes our men will raid other Indian groups or settlements. This creates much fear in the children and mothers. Usually, the sun is warm, the skies are calm, and the water is clear and gentle. The creek is our home and our friend.
We all want to live in a beautiful and balanced natural environment. Similarly, we want our children to be healthy, happy, smart, and well-adjusted. Providing children with opportunities to interact in nature is one of the most basic and healing ways to promote positive mental and physical health and positive self-esteem. My experiences as a psychologist support the belief that if we separate children from nature, it can potentially result in both physical and emotional problems due to the lack of an expansive outlet that nature provides. If we separate children from nature, it can potentially result in emotional isolation, feelings of depression, anxiety, internalized stress, resulting in acting out behaviors. Richard Louv identified nature deficit disorder as a condition today that has become a national epidemic among children. These include obesity, type 2 childhood diabetes, behavior disorders, depression, anxiety, and a diminished sense of place and community. Really, if you connect children with nature, it's going to benefit their overall emotional health, psychological and physical health. Exposure to nature reduces our apathy towards the environment later in life. Oftentimes, our fondest memories in adulthood are connected with our childhood experiences in nature. Positive childhood memories are imprinted in the brain, and as adults, we're often transported back to our childlike sense of adventure and playfulness we had in nature. Being in nature in childhood is magical and creates the eternal playground of the mind.
Fountain Creek Watershed is an incredibly unique watershed because of its tremendous change in elevation, 14 to 4. This results in tremendous climate differences, weather differences, wildlife habitat differences, and different types of plants. The watershed is a large land area, much like a giant bowl. All the rain and snow that fall in that area drain to the same spot, the low spot in the bowl. Fountain Creek and its tributaries make up the Fountain Creek watershed. Basically, Fountain Creek starts on the backside of Pikes Peak, comes down Ute Pass, and when it gets to Colorado Springs, it makes a hard right or turns south and runs 40 miles to the confluence with the Arkansas River in Pueblo. I think Fountain Creek is a tremendous asset to the state of Colorado as well as to the regions and to the communities that live along Fountain Creek. Where it is in the southern part of the state, we haven't felt the development pressure down here that we have in other parts of the state, and so we literally have the opportunity to preserve this creek. The Fountain Creek Foundation is a tremendous asset, not only to Fountain Creek itself, but to the community. The reality of Fountain Creek is that much of it is very beautiful, just as it was when the Utes and the Kiowas explored it 1,000 years ago. The Fountain Creek Foundation is working on a stewardship center. This isn't just about environmental stewardship, it's about stewardship of the entire planet and stewardship of community. This is a very exciting project that will bring kids, families, and professionals out to the creek. There will be courses and curriculum for everyone, young and old, to learn about the importance and beauty of Fountain Creek. The Stewardship Center will have canoe launches, beautiful walking paths, and there are designs for observation towers. One of the neat things about this particular area is that you can see all the different ecosystems in the creek by just getting up above the tree level. Many children have grown up alongside the Fountain Creek.
In the mid-1800s, a French businessman named Auguste Chouteau came into the Fountain Creek area from where it joins the Arkansas River and went up looking for beaver. He noticed there were fountains of water coming out of the creek, and to him it looked like they boiled, so he named the creek Fontaine qui Boue, which is the fountain that boils in French. His escapades up Fountain Creek, he caught many beavers up there, and it was during the same era as when the Bent brothers were on the Santa Fe Trail downstream on the Arkansas River. And he was an important businessman in St. Louis, and so the trade, he'd take the beavers from Fountain Creek and trade them in St. Louis.
The Fountain Creek District is dedicated to a number of things. It came out of working groups with people from El Paso and Pueblo County who are dedicated to restraining excessive water flows, making sure that the water is clean, and making sure that we have the right land uses on the creek's riverbank so that it facilitates all the things that we want to do. Some of the things that we want to do that we think are important is, one, slowing the water down so that you don't have floods between the city of Fountain and the city of Pueblo, because the city of Pueblo being downstream is always the city or community that suffers from flooding more than any other along the creek. So the district is primarily dedicated to slowing the water down, whether we do that with one dam or a series of dams or with wetlands or with any other kind of idea that we can come up with that will essentially slow the water down between the city of Fountain and the city of Pueblo. That's our number one goal. Our other goal is to make sure that the water is pure, to make sure that you can go out and play in it just as I did when I was a young boy, and have fun in it in a safe way, that the water's not contaminated or polluted. We want to bring fishing back. We want to bring recreational activities back, backpacking, horseback riding, all those sorts of things that will help bring the two communities of El Paso County and Pueblo County together so that we can enjoy each other's company and enjoy this great amenity that both communities share. We also want to make sure that the land use along the creek is appropriate so that it keeps the water clean, so that it doesn't increase the speed with which the water goes downstream. So when we're looking at a variety of business activities or other kind of activities that people want to use on the creek, we always want to make sure that it contributes to the cleanliness of the water and that it slows the rate of the water down between the two communities. The other thing that I think is interesting about Fountain Creek is that it's a historic river in Colorado, and both Spanish, French, Mexican, and American explorers use the Fountain Creek. And so it's not just a stream that is important to us because of recreation and agriculture and those sorts of things. It's also a historic river. It's one where all the peoples who inhabit the region of southeastern Colorado can trace their roots to in many ways, whether you were a French fur trapper, or you were a Spanish conquistador, or whether you were a Mexican caballero, or whether you were a frontiersman or mountainman who came from the east in the United States. We all trace our roots here, and it's important that we keep that heritage not only for us in the present, but for people who follow us in the future.
Now, I didn't forget to answer your questions about how certain folk sayings do predict the weather accurately. Here are some of the interesting answers.
Okay, there's a saying, horsetails in the west, weather is the best. Horsetails in the east, weather is bleak. For folks who've lived around southern Colorado, and especially around the Fountain Creek where there are horsetails, you see those horsetails blowing from the west, that usually means we could have a day much the same as this, where there's beautiful blue skies and high pressure and no problems. Now, if those horsetails are blowing to the east, an east wind blowing this way, if you've lived here for long enough, especially in the winter, that can mean trouble. That could mean a storm. Another saying, ring around the sun, it is time for fun, and then ring around the moon, trouble coming soon. That is pretty simple to understand. You get the highest clouds in the atmosphere. Those are high cirrus clouds. Those are actually made of frozen ice crystals, and when moonlight shines through those frozen ice crystals, it will create a ring around the moon, or a halo, and it will also create a ring around the sun, or a halo as well. Now, the folklore goes that if you were to see that ring around the moon at night, that halo around the moon at night, that would be trouble coming soon, because cirrus clouds usually precede by a day or two an impending storm. And so, you know, back in years gone by, they would see this ring around the moon and they would think, uh-oh, here comes trouble soon. Another piece of folklore for forecasting by everyday people that could go back as much as 2,000 years. When the evening sky is red, the devil is dead. And the great thing about folklore sayings is the way people would interpret what they were seeing, just based on that, just what they were seeing, whether the evening sky was red or the morning sky was red. And there are actually other weather sayings based on this kind of similar concept, but essentially when the evening sky is red, that would be more reminiscent of maybe a storm leaving a region, and then locals thousands of years ago, a couple thousand years ago, would see a morning sky being red and worry about maybe a storm coming in, which actually would be, I guess, based on kind of science, kind of more true to form. And the reddish tint that you get either in the morning or the evening is based on a very low sun angle like we have this morning, but a very low sun angle shining across many layers of the surface level of the atmosphere. If there are things like what are called particulate matter, like smoke or dust or moisture in the air, the more moisture you have in the air and the more dust and the more particulate matter, the more red a sunrise will seem. And then at the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're seeing one at night that's red, then you're seeing some of that matter to your west. And the devil in this saying refers to the devil being dead or the storm not happening.
Thank you for watching this episode of 14 to 4. Remember, healthy creeks make healthy communities. See you outdoors.
We're jumping and climbing.
Children and nature dancing together, good for every girl and boy. Children and nature dancing together, full of energy and joy.
We're running and playing and swishing the mud through our toes. We're splishing and splashing out where the cool water flows.
Children and nature dancing together, good for every girl and boy. Children and nature dancing together.